Salesforce buys Slack for $28 billion. Facebook acquires a SaaS business for $1 billion, and Stripe beefs up its SaaS analytics offerings. That and more on this week's PLG123. Let's dive in. Tab 1. Tab 1 is from the New York Times and is about Salesforce's acquisition of Slack. So this is a pretty straightforward story. Salesforce acquired Slack for $28 billion. Rumors started to surface about the deal in late November, and the stock popped in response. You can see that the stock was trading between $25 and $30 a share, and then in late November, when the rumors came out, it popped up, and this acquisition represents about a $45 a share, a little bit north of that when you include the cash and the Salesforce equity. So a huge jump from where it was trading. So here's why this matters. This is Salesforce's largest acquisition to date by far. The next largest deals from Salesforce were Tableau for $15 billion and MuleSoft for $6.5 billion. So you can see at 28, Slack is head and shoulders above all of the other targets Salesforce has pursued in the past. And in terms of takes on the acquisition, I think there are two primary takes. There's a positive and there's a slightly more negative. First, the more positive take, Salesforce is the enterprise SaaS juggernaut, and they wanted to own the product where work happens. Salesforce had already been owning more and more of the seats in the enterprise and more the time spent in the enterprise, with pushes into category-specific clouds like Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud, Commerce Cloud, and the list goes on. But with acquisitions that are more horizontal in nature, like say Quip that they did recently, and then obviously Slack now, there's a push to own more of the day-to-day, day in, day out, hour in, hour out productivity stack of the knowledge worker. Now, the second take, which is again a little bit more negative, it's the bear case, as much as that is possible for a $28 billion acquisition, but the case is this: Slack needed help. As we've talked about multiple times here in the PLG123 before, Slack has been under fire from huge platforms like Microsoft Teams and Google Workspace. Both of these players are taking the single integrated platform approach and leveraging their massive distribution as a huge advantage over independent players like Slack. While Slack is certainly the brand that's synonymous with enterprise messaging, it can still nonetheless be extremely expensive to fight a war on two fronts with two very well-funded incumbents in Microsoft and Google. So with this in mind, I think Slack wanted some help in the fight. They needed an ally. And while the more obvious ally from a product strategy standpoint to me is Zoom, Salesforce is much larger. And in a competitive war of this magnitude, size matters. So here's what to keep your eye on going forward. The obvious question is, what will the response be from Microsoft? Will we see Microsoft integrate Teams and Dynamics more closely in response? And will Google acquire a CRM player like HubSpot or Pipedrive? And the last question is, what will Zoom's role be in the Salesforce plus Slack acquisition? I expect a lot closer of a partnership because nothing unifies like a common enemy. And there are two common enemies here, and they are both very formidable. Tab 2. Tab 2 is from the Wall Street Journal and is about Facebook's acquisition of Customer. Facebook is acquiring Customer, which is a player in the customer support space. The acquisition price for the New York-based startup is $1 billion, which is a nice step up from the last private funding round, which was done at a little over a $700 million valuation recently. And notably, this is the second customer support win for founder and CEO Brad Birnbaum. Prior to starting Customer, Brad was the CTO and founder of Assistly, which was acquired by Salesforce and then became Desk.com. So after two impressive acquisitions in a row, I think it's safe to say that Brad knows this space. So here's why this matters. While this isn't Facebook's largest acquisition by any stretch, I mean, we all remember WhatsApp, it's certainly one of the more unique acquisitions to date in that it is a SaaS company serving the enterprise, and Facebook is not a SaaS company. The Wall Street Journal article points to two main reasons for this acquisition. First, from Facebook's perspective, this is aligned with their push into social commerce. Facebook recently announced Facebook Shops, which competes with Shopify, and this creates a great opportunity to further serve and more deeply serve those merchants with customer support and CRM functionality. And second, for Customer, one of the biggest channels that they see customer engagement coming through is Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and other Facebook-owned properties. So by combining with the parent company of Facebook, it creates a huge opportunity for them to integrate that much more deeply with such an important channel. So here's what to keep your eye on going forward. I have two big questions. First, will Facebook acquire more SaaS businesses? And second, which SaaS businesses would those be? Who's on Facebook's wish list this holiday season? Tab 3. Tab 3 is from Patrick Collison, Stripe's CEO on Twitter. So as the CEO tweets here, Stripe Billing has added new functionality to help with SaaS metrics reporting. Specifically, Stripe added functionality for cohort analysis so that you can very easily run gross and net dollar retention, and you can run it all on a cohorted basis with just a simple click of a button. So here's why this matters. While this is a common analysis to run and a popular analysis for many SaaS companies, and an incredibly valuable one, it's a pain in the butt to actually pull the data, clean the data, join the data, and then run the analysis. So this is music to the ears of any SaaS operator, and it's also music to the ears of SaaS VCs, because this is one of our favorite charts when we're looking at new businesses. Thank you to Stripe for making it easier for us investors to get a fast look at the business's retention health, which is so important these days. So here's what to keep your eye on going forward. I expect to see Stripe embed more and more SaaS reporting and analytics functionality into its core offerings. So what will they come up with next? And what will this mean long-term for players like Zuora and ChartMogul? Well, that does it for this week on the PLG123. Make sure to follow me on LinkedIn for more daily PLG content, and stay tuned for our weekly episode drops of the PLG123 coming at you right here on LinkedIn. Hope you all are having a great week, and take care.